Just as the Academy loves to give awards to movies about movies, here, as we are celebrating the second year of the Cosmic Queen Culture Pop Bold Business Podcast, we are going to make a podcast about podcasts. This is going to be a juicy one. I'm really excited for you guys because we're going to be talking celebrities. We're going to be talking big industry moves, new media, and the major opportunity in podcasting. Let's get into the culture pop. Like I said, we have a lot to get into today, but before we talk about celebs and what's going on in the industry and stats you need to know and the big opportunity out there and how to take it, I want to do a little celebration. Yes, I am so thrilled. November 1st of 2025 marks 2 years of the Bold Business Podcast. Now, some of you OGs may know that, we didn't start as the Bold Business Podcast. And if you're watching this on YouTube or Substack, you can see the slides as usual, but I'll just describe them to you. So we started on November 1st of 2023. Finally, I got my podcast out into the world. It had been years at this point that I had been thinking about doing this, that I wanted to do a podcast, that people have been asking me, when are you going to do a podcast? Genuinely, it's just always been something I wanted to do. I love to do video. And so, why not audio? So here we are. So on that November 1st, that fateful day, we launched as the Cosmic Queen podcast. So that was the very first iteration. You can see the first cover image there on the slides. And then we have, rebranded in this year. So we rebranded in February of 2025 for season 2. So season 3 is going to probably I don't know exactly what date I'm going to start it from. It's just when it feels right, like to shift. There's some kind of shift in the podcast and then I'll change the season. So it might be January. I have a feeling maybe January would be a good time. But regardless, celebrating 2 years of podcasting, 66 episodes, thousands of listens, hundreds of subscribers. I'm so proud of what I've been able to create. And I just can't wait to do more, right? I can't wait to do more and to get into more guests, to invite more people on, to get into more topics. Like there's just so much that we can do. There's so much more. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface. So I wanted to just, give a couple of insights that you might find interesting if you've been someone thinking about doing a podcast. I've been having so many sessions recently with clients where this has been top of their priority list. They've said, look, I want to start a business and I think I want to start a podcast to go with it, or I want to make that my main marketing channel, or I just know that, having a podcast is like something I've always wanted to do, So I wanted to share some just reflections and thoughts. And of course, as we go along, I'll keep sharing. And at some point, I'll probably do a course on podcasting, of course. As a business coach, you're just, anything that you go through that you have to learn, you're going to end up teaching, of course. So one thing that I think was really smart with this podcast was the rebrand. And it was moving from, the Cosmic Queen podcast to the Bold Business Podcast with Rachel Starr. And people, not that many people knew who Cosmic Queen was, right? They didn't know the brand. And so kind of calling it the brand, you could say that's a good strategy. But if the goal of the podcast is to attract new listeners who have never heard of you before, have no idea who you are, then you want to have a very clear reason to listen. And you don't want people to have to think about it. You don't want them to have to figure it out. You don't want them to have to be like, I wonder what this podcast is about, because, our attention spans are so short. We're not going to take the time to research and figure it out. We're just going to be like, bold business sounds good. That's what I want to do. So let's see. Right. And maybe you'll see the cover picture and be like, okay, cool. I vibe with this. So, getting more specific and more niche for podcasting is very smart. You can have more than one podcast and you can rebrand your podcast as well. So for any people out there who are maybe manifesting generators like me, or you're multi-talented, multi-hyphenate people, don't worry about putting yourself in a box, because you can always change the podcast with your next season. But if whatever season you're in right now, whatever you are selling, whatever you are focused on, that needs to be the very, very clear from the title, the imagery, everything, the headlines of your podcast. Another thing that I'm really proud of is that we have been in the top 100 podcasts in entrepreneurship and business in the UK more than once. I think it's like 3 or 4 times at this point. We keep popping up there. And that tells me that we're really hitting something right. And it's really been since the rebrand and since the regularity and consistency of me putting out this podcast is almost every week now, has ramped up, that started to happen. So of course, it makes sense. The more effort you put and the more focus you put on something, the more results you're going to get out of it. That's just the way it works. If you ignore a platform, it's not going to grow. That's not how it works. But if you really put your mind, heart, and strategy, your strategic brain into it, then absolutely you can make it work. So we've been in the top 100 several times. I would like to be in the top 100 to stay. And we've also been in the top 200 podcasts in the business category in Australia, Spain, and Denmark. So shout out to all of our listeners in Australia, Spain, and Denmark. I love you. Yeah. And so, of course, our goals here, my goal for this podcast is to be in the top 10% of podcasts. Now, some of you may wonder what that means. It's kind of like, when you write a book, you're like, I want to be a New York Times bestseller or USA Today bestseller or whatever. What does that mean? Well, I think it may surprise you. And I kind of want to, lift the veil on this a little bit, that it's not that hard. Like it's not impossible. It's not this like distant goal that only, the super famous people get, right? Or can achieve. Just like with New York Times bestseller, like you don't need to actually sell that many books to be a New York Times bestseller. Did you know this? It's something like around 1,000. Like it's not that many, but it's all about timing, right? It's all about strategy and timing. You have to sell that roughly, I think it was roughly around between 600 and 1,000. You have to roughly sell that many in the first week. So if you're smart and you get all your pre-orders in, you got it. Like you got it. You can do it, right? It's not impossible. We tend to put these types of goals and like awards and things like on a pedestal. And I would like to just take them off the pedestal and show you how possible it is to achieve the kind of influence that you would like to have, and to, grab these opportunities that are going to open major doors for you. So in order to be in the top 10% of podcasts, and I'm going to share some stats with you here in a moment, to be in the top 10% of podcasts, guess what you need to have? 500 listens in the first week per episode. 500. That's not a crazy number, is it? Like think about it, 500. I get, easily like 1,000 or more views on a TikTok, right? So 500 listens in the first 7 days. Not bad. Not bad. So yeah, that's the goal. We're going to get there. Really excited. Okay. So congratulations to us. Thank you everyone for being such amazing listeners. I mean, we wouldn't be able to have achieved any of what we've achieved so far if it wasn't for you. And I'm always open to your feedback, and I'm always open to your ideas of how we can make this even better. If you want shorter episodes, if you want more specialty topics and guests, if you want more casual conversations of just kind of sharing behind the scenes of like what's going on in my business and life, like I know I tend to enjoy those types of podcast to listen to myself. So if that's something you'd like, I tend to do more kind of educational or entertainment based podcasts, but yeah, just let me know. I would love to hear your feedback. And thank you everyone for giving us our 5-star reviews. We are 5 stars on the Apple App Store and have always had such amazing reviews. It's because of you that we're able to get the word out about cosmic insight, doing business in alignment, and doing things differently, really honoring who you truly are in your business. So thank you. two. The top two episodes, if anyone is new to the podcast and you like to go back and listen to what are the most popular episodes, the top two episodes are number 2, which was really our first episode, because the first one, number 1, is really just a welcome message. So number 2 and number 28 are our 2 top episodes. So episode number 2 was, of course, Midheaven for branding. This is the most popular episode. I think it's probably very, very popular because it is my signature. It's what I'm known for, but it's also one that I've pointed people to a lot. So I always say, hey, go listen to my podcast, go, grab my content about the midheaven. And that's what my ebook is on as well. Now, episode 28 didn't surprise me either. This episode was about the astrology of 2025. Now, for those of you who you did our forecast event last year, or you listened to the astrology of 2025, we are going to be doing that again this year. I'm so excited. So December 12th, I believe the date is. Circle that in your calendar. I'm going to start promoting it next month. That is where we're going to have our 2026 forecast event. So you don't want to miss that. You want to know all of the big astrology dates, all of the gateways coming up for 2026, because it is it is a major, major year, and I'm very excited about it. Okay, so that's all the kind of announcements and behind the scenes stuff I wanted to share with you about the Bold Business Podcast. May we continue growing. May we continue being creative and continuing to get out the cosmic cutting edge. Yes, love it. Okay, so let's dive into the rest of our episode today. I've got some really cool stuff for you here. I'm going to share this all with you, and then I'm going to go out and do some trick-or-treating with my little one. But first, before candy, let's talk about some podcast statistics, actually, before I jump into what Netflix is up to. I want to share some stats with you that I found very interesting. So if you are unsure of the power of podcasting and why it's, you want to understand, why has it become such a big deal? Why are there so many podcasts? Why are people pouring so much friggin' money into podcasting? I'm talking brands, advertising, celebrities, politicians, like what's going on? Well, this is why. Okay. So 1 out of 2 people in the UK, so I'm going to switch here back and forth between UK and global stats, but it just gives you an indication. 1 out of 2 people in the UK listened to a podcast in the last 30 days. Wow. Like, that's crazy. 1 out of 2, so 50% of people listen to a podcast in the last 30 days. That is a huge amount of reach. Imagine you can be able to reach half of the population with a particular platform. Now, I didn't look up like TV stats to compare, or let's say magazine or online newspaper stats, but I know it's not the same. I know it's not as high. I just know. And so that is very impressive. So there's a big opportunity here. There are 1.6 million podcasts out there, but I'm going to do a comparison of numbers. What's important is not how many podcasts, but how many active podcasts. So podcasts where they are posting once a week, once a month, or at least, somewhat regularly. So there's only 600,000 active podcasts. And I want to put this in perspective, because that may sound like a lot to you, like, oh my God, like the market is flooded. There's no place for me. No, listen to me. Listen to me right now. 600,000 podcasts is nothing. Nothing. Okay. That is just the number of how many have put out an episode, at least one episode this year. We are now in October. These stats are from October. Okay. Have put out one episode this year. It cuts in half. It's about 320,000, I think it was, for ones that have like put out an episode in the last month. So if you want to be like real about how many are actually active, it's probably more like 300 something thousand. It's nothing. It's nothing. Okay. And these stats, by the way, are according to Listen Notes data from October 2025. So this is up to the minute, real, recent data right here. Let's compare that to other social media platforms. So what we're looking for here is what Gary Vee talks about, right? He talks about the master of marketing and social media. He talks about underpriced attention. And he's always looking for those opportunities. That's how he's always kind of been on the cutting edge of digital, right? He was like one of the first people to really use Google AdWords, and then he was like one of the first people to really get into like TikTok and Instagram and and streaming and like all these different things, right? So underpriced attention is where you don't have to pay a lot, but you get a lot. You get in what's the word, in comparatively to other social media platforms, you get a lot of views or a lot of attention or a lot of a lot of people's attention. So that's what you're looking for. And that's podcasting. Let's compare this. Okay, so 300 something thousand active podcasts. Compare that to 2 billion with a B, billion monthly active users on Instagram. So people who are, making content, consuming content, whatever, 2 billion compared to 300,000. That's crazy. I would love to see the pie chart on that. Like the visual of comparing those two numbers. Now let's look at TikTok. 1.8 billion active, this is active, right? Active users on TikTok. 1.8 billion, again with a B. On YouTube, it's way less, but still 114 million active channels on YouTube. 114 million active channels compared to 300,000 podcasts. This is what we call underpriced attention. You can get and half the population is listening to a podcast, right? So just think about that. How many people you can reach on podcasting. Like, I know you're getting my point, but I'm just trying to hammer this home because this is such a big thing. Think about how many people are listening to podcasts, and then there's such a tiny number of podcasts. It is not flooded. Stop listening to people who are saying there's too many podcasts, like my voice will get, there's no place for me. My voice will get swallowed up. Like there's no point. Like why would I even put my time into it? No. Podcasts are the place to be. The top 100 podcasts out there are 2/3 of the downloads. So you want to get yourself out there and then you want to grow. Of course, that's the goal, right? To get into the top 200, top 100, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Incredible. So these are the stats that I wanted to kind of lay the landscape out for you about what an incredible opportunity podcasting can be and how fabulous it can be for your business. I wanted to note as well, I think I didn't put it on here, but I think it's episode 48. Let me check on my phone. Where we did a very special episode with Kelly Moser, who is fabulous. Let me just go and check. She has a business where she helps people to book podcast tours. So not on your own podcast, but to actually book, to like book yourself to be a guest on other people's podcasts. So I just want to tell you what number. I think it's 48. Oh, it's not 48. Where is it? Kelly. I need to give you the right number. All right, let me pause the recording because I want to make sure I get this for you. Haha, I found it. Okay, it's episode 44. I was close, which is called Leverage Podcast Interviews to Grow Your Audience in Business with the Hell Yes Media founder, Kelly Moser. Okay, so make sure you go and listen to that. That's a great one. Also in our upcoming Nova Business starter kit, we have a podcasting 101 mini course within there. Which is fantastic. It's taught by one of our guest teachers. She's amazing, Tish. And then we also have Gab Grow and Get Paid, which is a great way to understand how you can use social media, including podcasting, and how you can use your human design, your astrology. That is all within the Constellation community. So a little quick plug there for how you can go deeper and learn more and actually get in on this incredible opportunity. Okay, so let's talk about Netflix, shall we? Let's get into it. Netflix made a major move last week. So here you can see we've got Variety reporting on this. It says Netflix is to stream selection of Spotify video podcasts starting in 2026. So they have now made a deal. They've partnered with Spotify to take on YouTube as being a hub for podcasts. Yes, we have to call a spade a spade. Netflix is doing this, specifically cutting out YouTube from this. So any podcast that they are streaming on Netflix in partnership with Spotify cannot also be on YouTube because famously the Netflix CEO, I believe, said, what is the number one competitor for Netflix? Well, they said sleep. And then after that, we know it's YouTube because people are watching YouTube in massive, like the upswing in the number of people watching YouTube on their TVs. I know I've been watching YouTube, keeping up with all my K-pop groups, right? On their TV, right? And so Netflix, that is their biggest competition. It's us getting some good sleep. I know that's right. And YouTube. So this is really interesting. And I think this is something to watch. You know, they've picked a selection of like 6 podcasts, which I will mention or is it 6 or 12? I'll mention what some of the non-sports one is. They're making a big play for sports, but there are some non-sports podcasts as well. But it's really interesting to see what they're doing. So let me read you a couple quotes. Okay, so this is from Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos on the company's Q1 2025 earnings call in April. He was asked about his company's interest in podcasts, and here's his reply. Quote, "We're constantly looking at all different types of content and content creators. The lines between podcasts and talk shows are getting pretty blurry." That's a key point. "We want to work with kind of great creators across all kinds of media that consumers love. And podcasts, to your point, have become a lot more video forward." Another important point, okay? Sarandos added that as the popularity of video podcasts grow, I suspect you'll see some of them finding their way to Netflix. So he said this in April, and obviously now, as of last week, they've now announced that this partnership is going forward. So here's what the Roman Wassenmuller, VP head of podcasts at Spotify, said. "This partnership marks a new chapter for podcasting. Together with Netflix, we're expanding discovery, this is very interesting, discovery, I like that, helping creators reach new audiences and giving fans around the world the chance to experience the stories they love and uncover favorites they never expected. This offers more choice to creators and unlocks a completely new distribution opportunity." I love how, like, you know, they're just talking about, oh, it's like so great for creators and so great for fans. Sure. Yeah. But really, the reason they're doing this is money, right? The reason they're doing this is money. The reason any of these big companies are doing these things is money, because this is where the attention is, and attention is money. So if they can get more eyeballs or more ears to be tuning in, and you can just have Netflix on in the background while you're cooking breakfast or, you know, whatever it is that you're doing. That's usually when I'm listening to my podcast. Then all the better. That means more hours and more advertising dollars, because, you know, these big brands recognize that, like, you can't spend 2 million on a TV ad and get the kind of return that you were getting 50 years ago. It's not happening anymore. You have to be looking for new media. Where is new media? It's in TikTok, it's on YouTube, and it's in podcasting. So how does this relate to astrology? I want to just make a quick note about Uranus and Gemini. So we've been talking about this for a while. This should not be a surprise to anyone who's a regular listener, but if you are new to astrology, we can really see like the rise of new media reflected in this particular planetary transit. Having Uranus and Gemini means that, and which just started this year, by the way. So this started July 7th, and it's going to go for 7 years until August 2032. So we're having this planet in this sign for 7 years. And so that means that we're going to have 7 years of innovation, disruption, surprises happening in the area that Gemini governs. Gemini governs the mind and the mouth, you could say, both of those two. It's communication. It's how we think, but it's also how we share, how we communicate. It's also technology. It's all of these different ways that we connect to each other. So absolutely, I do think that the realm of social media, marketing, and business and technology, data, analytics, everything that's connected to all of these things are going to be massively disrupted. over the next 7 years. And it's already starting. We already see it, of course. So podcasting is going to be a part of that, right? And it's going to be a new opportunity for a lot of people who aren't podcasting now to be thinking about, how can I take advantage of it? How can I stand out? How can I build what I'm building and reach the people I need to reach with this platform? Okay, so that's Netflix. Now, I want to talk about how celebrities are using podcasts. We call this, I guess we could still call it new media. I mean, the podcast has been around for a long time, but technically this is considered new media versus traditional media. Traditional media being like magazines, newspapers, and TV and outdoor, right? So new media being like social media and podcasting and things like this. So as you can see on the slide, the upper corner there's an article from, where is this from? Fast Company. That said, the title says, "How the Right Won Podcasting and Helped Donald Trump Win the Election." So this is not news, right? We've heard about this before. They called this the podcast election. And unfortunately, we saw that Trump and Vance going around some of these right-wing podcasts had an important impact on some voters. So we can't ignore that. We can't ignore what this tells us, as frustrating as it is the influence of podcasting and how celebrities, politicians, whoever, famous people who want to sell something or get their point across or whatever, they're not necessarily just going to daytime TV anymore. They're going to podcasts, and they're recognizing that podcasts are a way that they can not only get their message across, but actually reach directly into the living room of the people that they're specifically trying to speak to. So we saw this in politics. We're seeing it in politics, like with the New York, is it the governor's election, et cetera. But we're seeing it everywhere. But here's a couple of more examples for you. So Variety talked about, here's a headline from very recently, for just last month, said how press shy stars are finding their voice in Hollywood during the podcast era. So they give the example of Leonardo DiCaprio and Joaquin Phoenix. And they also in the article talked about, what's the name? Joaquin Phoenix. I did say it earlier, but that's not who's pictured. It's Benicio del Toro as well. But yeah, they talked about how like Joaquin Phoenix and Leonardo DiCaprio specifically are kind of known for not doing press. Like they hate it. They don't want to do it. The idea of like coming into a hotel room and having like a press junket for 10 hours with like all these journalists after journalists after journalists asking you the same questions over and over and over again. A lot of stars hate it. Some stars are really good at it. And they gave some great examples of like, they talked about Pamela Anderson last year and Jamie Lee Curtis as well, and how a lot of people believe that their willingness to do tons and tons of press and to be really good at it, very charismatic, actually ended up winning them awards that award season. I thought that was really interesting. I've not really heard that many people talk about that, about how, if you're an actor, like it's not just, oh, my work stands for itself. It's like you got to campaign for stuff. It is political. And I thought that was interesting that Variety kind of dove into that. But if you're not someone who's comfortable with that, then what are you going to do? You're going to go on Travis Kelce's podcast like Leo and Benicio did, and you're going to talk about your movie, and you're going to have this kind of like homey, comfy conversation with someone, and people are going to like it more because it just feels more real. And if you select the person right, then you're not going to get any like crazy questions, right? So it's really interesting just to look at how celebrities are not necessarily turning to daytime talk shows or even late night TV shows as much. They're really looking for, what's the podcast that I can go on that is the new media format for me to promote my project and my work. The last example I have here is the Aspire podcast, which I'm really enjoying right now. One of my favorite episodes so far is where Emma Grede had Bozoma St. John on, and it was such a good episode. I really recommend anyone who is working on their confidence in themselves, who is wanting to be more assertive and like just going after their goals in life, to listen to that episode, you will be so hyped by the time you're done with it. You'll just be like, yeah, hell yeah. So I have this little picture here where there's a quote. It's talking about how Bozoma was talking about, don't be humble, like take credit for your work. What is this thing about like trying to keep your head down and being humble? It doesn't work, especially never works for women. So love it, love it, love it. And I love that, she's got a new venture going on now. She's like, in the episode, she talks about, I don't think I'm ever gonna take another job. I'm done working for someone else. I want to do my thing now. And so she's teaching people how to be more confident, teaching people how to, assert themselves, be a boss. I think her key course is called How to Be a Badass or something like that. I love it. And so she's promoting that, right? And coming on podcasts to promote that. It makes so much sense. Anyone who's got a big book out, right? We saw, is it Ray Dalio? Yeah, that's his name. Ray Dalio, he's like considered like the number one kind of investment brain like in the world. He recently had a book out and was going on Diary of a CEO and all these other podcasts. This is what you do now. You don't go and write articles for Vogue necessarily. You're going to podcasts. So anyway, you get my point. Uranus and Gemini is doing its thing. There is a major, major opportunity for anyone who wants to get in on this new media. Okay, so I want to share some of my current favorite podcasts with you now that we've talked about, Netflix making moves, celebrities really honing in more on podcasting as a way to get their projects out. What are some great ones that you can listen to that I recommend, that I really enjoy? I just thought it would be fun to tell you what I'm listening to. Okay, so for business, I love the Project Me with Tiffany Carter. This is one of my favorite podcasts. And I think a reason that not only Tiffany, who is an amazing projector, but also a business coach, et cetera, et cetera. One of the reasons that this podcast is so successful, and they do really great numbers. I forget what rank they are, but they're really high up in terms of business podcasts in the US. But one of the reasons this podcast is so successful is because she's so unfiltered and just genuine and authentic. She talks about, how she's feeling that day and shares, how she's doing emotionally, mentally, physically, like when she's got like, tummy issues or she's feeling down, like she shares that. And I think the rawness and the realness of it is so friggin' refreshing. She swears a lot. She's just like, feels like you're talking to your best friend, right? And they're just giving it to you like it is. They're telling it like it is. They're just having a great conversation. Plus, she's got such an incredible amount of experience. She's achieved so much in her life, runs multiple very successful businesses, self-made millionaire, lives on the beach in Malibu. And it's just, you feel like you're talking to your big sis and she's telling you, look, this is what you got to do in your business. So I highly recommend that as a business podcast. I think there's a lot of really bullshit business podcasts out there. And it's nice to hear from like a real person. It's interesting. I remember there was a lot of criticism like a couple months ago of the Diary of the CEO podcast. Stephen Bartlett, and people were saying, look, we're so sick of just hearing from only people who have already made it. Like only people who are like wildly successful and they just want to tell us about how all the perfect things and they don't want to get really down into it. I saw so many different videos where people are like, I want to hear from the single mom that's like, just launched her first thing and is figuring it out. Or I want to hear from the business owner who's got a small business, but really passionate about it. And they're, working through stuff. And I think I love that. I think that's really cool. And I agree. I think I like to hear from both. I'm a Libra, so there's got to be balance. I like to hear from people who are wildly successful and have, the battle wounds to kind of, to prove it. And I also like hearing, from people on the come up. And I think, Tiffany is kind of like in the middle there. She's very, very successful, but she's also like hungry and creative and passionate and like still trying new things. And I love that. Okay. So then we have the Aspire podcast with Emma Grede. I really like this. I think she has really interesting guests on, a lot of people that, kind of she's connected with the various business ventures. That she is, I believe, co-CEO of Skims, has worked with a lot of the Kardashians businesses, and then also was on Shark Tank in the US, etc. I really like her episode with Mark Cuban. I recommend that one, and of course the one with Bozoma St. John. And then we have Prof G Markets. This has been really interesting. I listen to this very regularly. I like all of Prof G's podcasts, but I like the Markets one the best. It is, I think he said it is their top podcast. Each of his podcasts, I like how transparent Prof G is, specifically Scott Galloway, about like the money that the podcast makes. So he's like, there's one episode where he's like, yeah, this podcast, this one of ours makes 1.5 million. This one makes 2 million. This one makes 600,000. And he's like breaking it down. And I think that's really fascinating. I also love how their focus on the markets and talking about finance, because I didn't grow up with any like financial literacy. I know a lot of us didn't. So it's like understanding complicated things like the stock market, the economy, investments, why is everyone investing in gold right now? Like, you're going to learn all that kind of stuff on Prof G Markets. And I think it's really fascinating. So it's good to stay up to date. It makes you feel a lot smarter. So then we have a couple that I listen to mostly for entertainment when I'm like, I can't talk about politics right now. I just want to, it's so enraging what's going on. I want to laugh. I want a good laugh. I listen to The Comment Section by Drew Afualo. I just find her so inspiring. She's like who I want to be when I grow up. The Comment Section is really funny. She has really great guests. And it's like slice of life. And I love the storytelling. I think if you want to learn how to be a better storyteller on your podcast, definitely recommend that. Also So True with Caleb Heron, of recent fame, being on the Rolling Stones top influencer list above Mr. Beast, which is a hilarious episode in pop culture. But yeah, I love Caleb Heron. I think he just had a special on, not on Netflix, but somewhere else. But yeah, really funny. Great at comedy, great at storytelling, and has some really interesting guests. I think one of my favorite episodes, I really love, of course, when he has Drew Afualo on, because they're friends. I also love when he has Bob the Drag Queen on. Those are that hilarious episode. And then there was one where he had this amazing man who runs, I don't remember his name, but who runs a queer history museum in Missouri, I think. And it's such an interesting episode, just like really deep and funny and thoughtful and entertaining. So I really love that So True podcast as well. And then there's two more. So I would also recommend Built for the Edge by Kayla G. Love you, Kayla G, if you hear this. So I was on Kayla G's podcast earlier this year. We did a podcast series called What She Did Next. And I just love Kayla's. She reminds me so much of Coach Tiffany as well. Like, she's so real, just really, really genuine person. Big heart, very passionate about what she does, and the way she breaks down the gene keys, especially, but gene keys in human design, I just find really beautiful. Like, it's like listening to poetry, the way she talks about them. So if you want to learn more about the gene keys as well, I would highly recommend her and her work. So that podcast is called Built for the Edge. And then the last one is Diabolical Lies. If you want to, have a rage fit about politics, especially about what they're doing to women, listen to Diabolical Lies. It's really fun. And they're very interesting ladies who run the podcast, and I really enjoy it. My inner feminist just gets like, I love it. And they really go into a lot of the history of things. I think it's really a fascinating listen, and very pop culture. So these are my recommendations of podcasts. I do recommend listening to great podcasts if you want your podcast to be great, because you're going to see, these ones that I've recommended here are genuinely ones I listen to like every week. And they are also very different in style, all of these. But there's a genuineness and a fascinating ability to tell a story that every single one of these podcasts does. You might come to a podcast for education. You might come to a podcast for entertainment. You might come to a podcast to, grow and be inspired, whatever it is, and however you want to create your podcast. Think about what you want to put out in the world. The opportunity is massive. It's incredible what can happen. And I mean, just look at, I know I didn't mention this when I was talking about Netflix, but some of the shows that they are actually, that they've got that are going to be coming out as video podcasts next year in 2026, there are 16 different ones. A lot of them, like I said, were sports, but of the non-sports ones, there's two that are about movies, two that are about food, one that's a music analysis show, and one that's true crime. And what I find fascinating is the podcasts that they selected are not massive podcasts. So again, if you are like worried about getting started and how much work it's going to be, just know that there are podcasts that Netflix chose to turn into basically like video TV shows that only had like 10,000 listens, per episode. Or only had, I think there were some that were like 50,000 listens. Those are not huge numbers when you get into they're not top 100 podcasts. You know what I mean? So it's really impressive that you could, if you're the right fit to work with a certain brand or to be picked up by a certain podcasting company, like you could be on a podcasting network and you could be making millions of dollars with a podcast. Or, and that's kind of a reach for the stars goal. Or you could just think about how you can reach the 1,000 people that you would die to work with, that are your people, that are ready to hear your message, and they're looking for the kind of content that you create, right? So don't sell yourself short. Don't stop yourself. Get yourself a microphone and get going. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you always enjoy the Culture Pop podcast, or the Culture Pop series, I should say, within the Bold Business podcast. It seems to be our most popular episodes recently. You guys really love to talk about pop culture. You love to talk about how astrology and human design can support you in everything that you do. So I'll end on a cosmic tip. So what I want to say is that with podcasting, definitely look at your midheaven. That's the first thing you got to look at. What is your midheaven? Do you have a water midheaven and you're a connector? So emotional connection is really important in your communication. Are you a fire midheaven and you're an activator? So that means that you're here to like wake people up, right? And you're here to motivate people. Are you an air midheaven and you're a innovator? And so you're all about inspiring people and opening their minds and really helping them to make some kind of big change? Or are you an earth midheaven and you're a stabilizer? You're here to bring calm, practicality, and a solid foundation. Which one is it? Make sure that you are adjusting and branding and putting out your podcast accordingly. It's going to be even more successful when it's in alignment with your cosmic blueprint. All right. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your weekend. If you're listening to this today, happy Samhain. If you're listening to this on the 1st, celebrate with us 2 years of this podcast. So excited for the next years to come. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.